This day in sports history. It's March 30th, and on this day in 1919, the Stanley Cup Final was canceled due to an outbreak of the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu had been raging around the world since the previous year, but most believed the worst to be behind them after the most deadly phase of it had rolled through the previous fall. The Cup Final was held in Seattle in 1919, with Montreal representing the NHL and the Seattle Metropolitans representing the Pacific Coast Hockey Association. The series was even at 2 wins, 2 losses, and a tie in a best-of-5 series, and the teams were actually playing these games under different rules. The PCHA rules were used in Games 1, 3, and 5, and NHL rules were used in Games 2 and 4. Game 4 ended scoreless after 3 periods and 2 overtimes, and it's considered one of the all-time great games, with Montreal's Georges Vezina and Seattle's Hap Holmes repelling every shot. Game 5 on the 29th was played under NHL rules and was to go the distance until a winner was decided. Seattle had a 3-0 lead in that one, but began to show signs of exhaustion, and Montreal rallied to tie the game and then win it in overtime. Had Seattle won that game, they would have won the Cup. The next day, 7 of the Canadiens players were diagnosed with the Spanish flu, and 3 needed to be hospitalized. The Metropolitans had 3 players who contracted the disease as well. The Metros did have enough healthy players to continue the series, but the Canadiens did not. There was talk of a Montreal forfeit, since they could not put a healthy team on the ice. But the PCHA's Frank Patrick nixed that idea, saying the greatest ice hockey series ever staged ends in a draw. Sadly, Canadiens defenseman Joe Hall died as a direct result on April 3rd. The Canadiens' general manager, George Kennedy, was severely affected by the illness, and he was left weakened. His death 2 years later was directly related to the Spanish flu that he had contracted during this time. Interestingly, one of the Canadiens' players who did not get sick was goalie Georges Vezina. However, Vezina would die tragically from tuberculosis after collapsing during a game in 1939. The Stanley Cup is engraved for the year 1919 with the words, "Series not completed." This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. I'm a big fan of shave soap. I've been using different brands for years, and I recently gave Sterling's shave soaps a try, and I've been very happy with the results. Sterling's shave soaps give you a great lather and a frictionless feel that allows the razor to glide right over the skin for a super close shave. No skin irritation and a clean, refreshing feel with no soapy residue after. I can tell you without a doubt, it's simply the best shave I've ever had. And my wife has noticed too. And here's the thing. With the ability to purchase 1-ounce sample pucks, you can try out different scents to find the right one for you. Give Sterling Soap a try today. Visit sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. On this day throughout the last 80-plus years, it was a good day to be an Indiana Hoosier. On this day in 1940, 1981, and again in 1987, Indiana University won the men's basketball national championship. Let's go in reverse order and start in 87 with Indiana playing Syracuse in the Louisiana Superdome. And unlike the game we talked about yesterday at the Superdome, this tournament final had a 3-point shot and a shot clock. That 3-point arc played a prominent role in this game. Bobby Knight had not been a fan of the 3-point shot being added to the college game. In fact, even after he retired, he talked about how he still hated it. But with it being part of the game, he at least found guys who could shoot it. This 87 team had senior Steve Alford, who was taking about 6 threes a game and hitting 53% of them. In this game, Alford hit 7 of his 10 attempts beyond the arc, and because of that, Syracuse's Jim Boeheim decided to play a box-and-one on him. Alford's final points came with more than 4 minutes left on the clock. So with the defensive focus on Alford, That left Keith Smart available to exploit the defense in the final minutes. And he did. With 28 seconds remaining, Syracuse had a 1-point lead, and Derek Coleman was on the free throw line with a chance to make it a 3-point game. But he missed the front end of the 1-and-1 and set up the final shot. Here's Brent Musburger and Billy Packer calling the game for CBS that night.
He's short. Indiana can win it. And they decide to put Douglas on Alford. And they go man-to-man. Smart takes the shot. And the Hoosiers with 3 seconds. Go ahead.
Smart had 12 of Indiana's final 15 points, and he finished the game with 21 to lift the Hoosiers to their 5th NCAA championship with the 74-73 win over the 'Cuse. And to the Philadelphia Spectrum we go now for the 1981 championship game. This was the 6th-ranked North Carolina Tar Heels against number 9 Indiana. Now, first off, this game was nearly postponed due to the assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan earlier in the day. There were discussions, but after it was learned that the president was out of surgery and would survive his injuries, the teams decided to go ahead with the game. The Hoosiers were led by sophomore Isaiah Thomas. Coach Bobby Knight gave him the keys to the car at the start of the season and told him to drive it. Destination, Philadelphia. Indiana struggled a bit finding the bottom of the bucket in the first half, and if it had not been for Randy Whitman, it may have been a Tar Heel blowout by halftime.
Doesn't hit the short jumper. Worthy gets it back. He can't hit. Rebound Thomas. He's 6'3", and he outleaped Worthy.
Boy, Ray Tolbert just changes the arc on the shot inside.
Whitman ties it up for the Hoosiers.
Whitman would later give the Hoosiers their first lead of the game with a second on the first half clock, and that set up Thomas to put some high octane in the tank and get going in the second half.
And a steal, Isaiah Thomas against Black. Pepper with Carolina trailing by 3. There's Thomas again. Al Wood can't stop him, and Indiana has its biggest lead, 33-28.
Thomas had 17 points in the second half to finish with a game-high 23, and Indiana won their 4th national title, 63-50. One quick note, this was the last year of the third-place game, which was also played on this day. Virginia beat LSU in that one. Jeff Lamp led the way for the Wahoos with 23. Ralph Sampson did not start the game, but he came off the bench to play 17 minutes and put together a double-double with 10 points and 11 rebounds. And now back in the time machine to 1940. Indiana won their first national championship with a 60-42 win over a Phog Allen-coached Kansas team. This was just the second NCAA basketball tournament, and there were a couple of tie-ins to the inventor of the game, James Naismith, in this one. Springfield College from Massachusetts, the school that employed Naismith when he invented the game, was represented in the 8-team field. Also, this was Kansas's first appearance in the tournament. The Jayhawks were originally coached by Naismith. And one more NCAA tournament tidbit with an Indiana tie-in. In 1991, the Duke Blue Devils knocked off UNLV 79-77 in the National Semifinals, ending UNLV's 45-game winning streak, and its bid to become the first undefeated team to win a national title since Indiana's 1976 run. The Runnin Rebels were the defending champions, destroying Duke in the national title game the season prior by 30. And the way UNLV played that season, outscoring teams by an average of 27 a game, nobody seemed to be able to challenge them, especially Duke. And up 5 with 2 minutes 20 seconds to play, the Devils knew they were running out of time. And that's when Bobby Hurley stroked the most important 3 of his career.
Still plenty of time to not worry about threes, and Hurley hits one right there because it was available.
What a big 3 by Bobby Hurley. He now has 12.
That cut the lead to 2. Brian Davis scored a bucket, Christian Leitner hit a pair of free throws, and Duke pulled off the win and moved on to the championship game. On this day in 2001, 15-year-old Michael Phelps set his first world record in the 200-meter butterfly, swimming it in 1 minute 54.92 seconds to eclipse the mark held by American Tom Malchow. The meet was in Austin, Texas, and qualified the teenager for that summer's World Championships. Phelps was the youngest to ever set a world swimming record. He would go on to set 33 more of them, including 7 more in the 200 fly. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Despite what you may have seen in movies or cartoons growing up, pirates were not known to bury their treasure. Only one instance of a pirate doing so has ever been recorded. William Kidd buried his treasure off the coast of Long Island, New York. But that didn't work out so well for him. An acquaintance of Kidd's with knowledge of the burial dug it up, and that was later used to convict him of piracy. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.